One reason I want him to run for president, well, is because he's obviously a winner. This guy could do it. It's insane that we have the guy, but we can't run him because we have to tiptoe around Biden. And
define a winner.
Well, he would win the election.
Oh, so
he would win the election.
So he's a talented debater, speaker, communicator, deflector.
And politician. And he's a smart guy. He's a smart, real guy with a pair of balls. Right.
What areas has Newsom won in? You said he's a winner.
Winner of the election. He could win the election.
But based on what, though? Do you want results? Like, what has he done to California to say he's a winner?
Oh, God. I don't know.
Showing open drug use on the street, it shows a large group of kids getting off a minibus and having to wade through a crowd of people who appear to be using drugs. KPIX's Betty Yu spoke with a man who shot that video about whether he thinks Jenkins' approach to drug crimes will improve things.
On any given day, residents say Willow Street off Van Ness is lined with trash and tents.
The folks who know Willow, it's really in
what we call a 10-year plan to end chronic homelessness in San Francisco.
How are you going to solve homelessness? What are you going to do as a new mayor? And I say, well, what are you going to do?
Focus on a housing first model, direct access to housing.
Shelter, solve sleep, housing with wraparound and support services, solve homelessness. Homelessness absolutely can be solved.
Laid out a detailed homeless strategy. There's been no intentionality on homelessness in this state for decades. It's not been a focus. I don't think we can solve homelessness. I know we can solve homelessness. We will reduce street homelessness quickly and humanely through emergency action. The highest investment the state's ever made is $1 billion on homelessness. We are poised to pass a budget in the next few hours that will provide $12 billion of investment. I can literally quantify 58,000 people that we got off the streets last year, and none of you would believe it.
This state has not made progress in the last 2 decades as it relates to homelessness.
Why? We're not interested in funding failure. We're not interested in failing more efficiently when it comes to the issue of homelessness and the crisis on the street.
Oh, how much I love a beautiful flashback moment, especially when it's a multi-flashback moment. One clip after another, one election after another. The same promise. Since back in 2008, Gavin Newsom introduced his 10-year plan to solve homelessness. We're gonna eradicate homelessness in California. It's been 16 years, and they've done nothing to solve the problem. In fact, the problem is much worse than when they started.
Tonight, California Governor Gavin Newsom ratcheting up efforts to clean out those homeless encampments, the ones that have become synonymous with some of the state's biggest cities. The funding comes as a University of California study finds 171,000 people are experiencing homelessness in the Golden State, representing 30% of the entire country's homeless population and roughly half of the nation's unsheltered.
You know, since Gavin Newsom took office as California's governor, the state has allocated an unprecedented $21 billion to tackle homelessness and housing issues. But despite all these efforts, we're calling them efforts, but really, despite all this throwing money at the problem, that's what Democrats do. You know, they just see a hobo on the street and they take a stack of Benjamins and just whip it at the guy. Huzzah! You know, they probably cast a spell from Harry Potter, Eradicus Homelessnissius, and then they throw a wad of cash at Hunter Biden's crack friend, then turn around and of course bow to the Democrat audience. Look at what I did. Despite all the money they've spent, it hasn't worked. California's homelessness crisis persists as the number of unhoused residents has increased from approximately 150,000 back in 2019 to now nearly 200,000 in recent years. And here's one of the main issues. It's called one-time funding. Most of California's financial allocations to homelessness programs have been in the form of one-time grants, which of course makes it difficult to establish a sustainable long-term program that gets at the root cause of the actual problem. In other words, little departments or little groups sort of pop up. Gavin Newsom gives them a chunk of money in a one-time grant and then basically puts his hands up in the air and says, well, that ought to solve the problem. Then when it doesn't, they take another, I don't know, however many $1 billion or hundreds of millions of dollars, and they throw it at new groups. Here's a one-time grant to the Homelessness Foundation of America, to the California Public Housing Advocacy Group of America, to the California Black and Indigenous Homeless Issues Group of America. He just throws the money at fancy-sounding groups over and over again in the form of one-time grants. They most likely pocket the money. And by the way, don't go to try to Google those foundation names. I'm just inventing random names because that's basically what happens. It's always a fancy-sounding group. He throws money at them, and then they basically pocket the money, run away, and then the cycle continues. It's a taxpayer-funded, vicious cycle, money laundering mill. That's really what it is. They don't want this problem to go away. They don't want the drug use epidemic to go away because of all the public workers and departments that they've created that depend on the issue to justify their jobs and salaries. The same thing goes for homelessness. They've created public industries around homelessness, around tackling systemic racism, now drug addiction, now the migrant crisis, and they don't want their slush fund to go away. If Gavin Newsom actually had a 10-year plan to solve homelessness, well then all these useless bureaucrats wouldn't be needed anymore if they actually solved homelessness. With $21 billion over the last, decade or so, you're telling me that California couldn't even achieve a moderately successful result? That's insane. It's completely insane. They have proven useless on the issue because they'd rather subsidize the issue than actually solve it, than actually tackle the core issue itself. California doesn't want to tackle their housing crisis, of course not. They don't want to make the permitting process easier. They don't want to increase construction because all of these California elitists, these bureaucrats, these politicians, these Hollywood and tech elite love the fact that their penthouse is worth $25 million. They don't want to increase housing supply, which will stagnate the price or even reduce the price. Never in a million years. They don't want to spend that $21 billion on creating actual facilities that take people off the streets and give them the help that they need. I mean, there are people on the streets of California who are legitimately mentally ill and shouldn't be on the streets. You're telling me that with $21 billion spent, they couldn't make huge infrastructure projects and facilities to take in these clearly in desperate need of help people and put them in a facility that takes care of them, gets them clean, and keeps them off the streets? Give me a break. With $21 billion, Gavin Newsom could have probably created 100 of these facilities and actually done something positive to help impact people's lives.